Congressman Mike Rogers, Chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Mr. Chairman, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks
First,
for having me.
I want to get you to talk about the breaking news about the administration now saying that Syria, in fact, has used chemical weapons. Your thoughts, you heard this story that they're not saying any direct military aid as of yet, or weapons as of yet, or no-fly zones as of yet.
Yeah, we really don't have a good policy. Matter of fact, earlier this week we've asked the White House to come up and brief us what our plans are, what the United States plans to do. He says this has changed his calculus, as many have called for, the French and the British and the Israelis, myself, others who have said, hey, listen, there's really clear evidence that these chemical weapons have been used maybe as long as a year and a half ago. Let's go here. This thing is deteriorating into a regional conflict, which is dangerous to the national security of the United States. Problem is, the announcement comes today. We still don't have a plan. So I'm hoping that the White House will show up next week with a comprehensive plan about how we move forward in what is a very, very difficult situation.
You're saying a year and a half ago you may have known. March 19th, you said, I have a high probability to believe that chemical weapons were used. How confident were you back then? And do you think this took too long for the administration to get to this point?
I do think it took too long. I think they tried to outsource it to the United Nations. Listen, there's no substitute. You cannot outsource U.S. leadership. It just doesn't work. Our Arab League partners wanted U.S. leadership in this position. And again, this isn't about boots on the ground and military action. There's a whole host of other things that the U.S. credibility brings to very hard decisions that are being made in a place like Syria. None of that really happened. And so we lost credibility with our Arab League partners. We lost credibility with the opposition, which is why the Secretary of State is having such a difficult time trying to get some agreement on a diplomatic solution. You have to show that leadership role in order to corral all the forces on the ground in Syria to a difficult agreement. We don't have that yet.
Mr. Chairman, you know that the public opinion polls are upside down on this for any action by the U.S. A recent poll at Fox said, what should the U.S. do about the situation in Syria? Help, civil rights crisis, or stay out, civil war? 68% said stay out. Do you think that...
Well, listen, I agree. If they're talking about military action, I am absolutely with them. I am completely convinced that would be a disaster for the United States to do it. Remember, though, we have very special capabilities, and the Arab League partners, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Qatar, other places, our friends the Turks, are all looking for U.S. leadership, not necessarily boots on the ground, but leadership. We can bring unique capability. And let me tell you why this is important, Brett. They have chemical weapons. Clearly now we've seen that they've used them. They have chemical weapons. We know that every flavor of terrorist in the world is in Syria right now fighting, gaining experience, and guess what? They want to get their hands on those chemical weapons. If we have any national security interest at all, it's to make sure that those chemical weapons and those conventional stockpiles of weapons don't fall in the hands of the al-Nusra Front, an al-Qaeda organization, al-Sham, and also an al-Qaeda organization, Hezbollah that's operating actively now in Syria, Hamas elements are there, PKK terrorist groups are up in the north. I mean, we need to make sure that those groups don't become armed with something that causes a worldwide crisis.
I want to turn you now to the NSA case, another breaking story. Today you talked about the connections possibly with China and Snowden, Edward Snowden's ties would be scrubbed, you said. Do you have any reason to believe that he's already in Chinese protective custody?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if here's a guy who packed up a whole bunch of very sensitive materials, tried to access material that was clearly out the bounds of his responsibility, packed it all up, and headed to China to make an announcement that he was a whistleblower, which, by the way, he's no whistleblower. He gives whistleblowers a bad name. These folks come to Congress and come to legitimate places where we can fix these problems. And we believe that he's now reporting in China media about the United States possibly spying on China. That's not whistleblowing. That's betraying your country. And so there's a lot of interesting events that we had seen that just don't pass the smell test.
Was he in computer systems where he was not supposed to be?
He was clearly accessing information he was not supposed to have, downloaded information he was not supposed to have, and attempted to access other areas of the system that he was, it appears today, was not able to get at.
And there was a report.
But he had no business. He had no business doing that.
A report that he used a computer thumb drive to smuggle out the highly classified documents. Can you confirm that?
I'm not able to confirm that. The investigation is ongoing. And again, there's a whole bunch of series of actions by this individual that does not lead me to believe that his intentions were honorable. His intentions were to take all this material and go to a country that has a highly aggressive intelligence activity directed at the United States of America. That's concerning.
Can you give us specifics on how these programs thwarted attacks? I mean, specifics of either program.
Well, what we're going to do, I think the Benghazi case is a fantastic example to me. And remember, this is really important, Brett, and I know there's a lot of people who are concerned about this, and the reason they're concerned about it is we have three very real scandals happening with the administration. Benghazi, the IRS, and by the way, that IRS scandal is real. I think there's going to be criminal behavior here. And then you have the AP issue. Those are clouding people's public trust on national security issues. So I hope that people take the time, because this is important for our national security. I do believe it has saved American lives and lives of our allies. And here's the thing. It goes into a lot, but the phone records, I think, has most people charged up. So these are business records held by the company. They don't belong to the consumer. These are just billing records. But there's no names attached to this.
I'm going to get cut off. If you have just 1 second, I'd like to hold you to the other side of the break and just finish this thought. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We continue to be joined by House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Rogers before we were rudely cut off by the computer that pays the bills here. Mr. Chairman, you were saying why these programs are so important. There is one poll out this week from us. NSA secretly collecting phone records of millions of U.S. citizens. Unacceptable, invades privacy, 62%. Acceptable, prevents terrorism, 32%.
Right, and I think if the question is asked how we know the information, you know, I have the privilege and the burden to be the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, because we go over these things with an absolute fine-tooth comb, because the Constitution tells me, Brett, that I am supposed to defend the United States of America, and by the way, you can't do it by violating these rights of individuals. We've done that, and we have absolutely done that in this particular case. So if you tell Americans there's a lockbox, this is information that doesn't belong to you, by the way. It's like, think of this, when you put your trash out on the curb, law says that is no longer yours, no expectation of privacy. Your billing information when it goes, and this is not your name, by the way, it's not even your subscriber information, it's just phone numbers in a big box, a database, just phone numbers, no names, no addresses, nothing. And so what happens is the NSA gets a tip that this phone number overseas belongs to a terrorist, and it has another phone number in it where they don't know the origin. They go through a whole series of steps, court-ordered steps, to even access the box that is only phone numbers, no names. They punch it in, and guess what comes out? Well, it could be nothing, or it could come out like 3 or 4 different phone numbers. They still don't even know the names. If they think that's a domestic phone number, they have to give it to the FBI to conduct an investigation that has all the rights and protections of U.S. citizens. This is so overseen and so used by just a fraction of the time. But I'll tell you why it's important. You get a terrorist person operating in the United States, and by the way, they're treated like a U.S. person, talking to a terrorist overseas. That's how you disrupt terrorist plots from overseas happening in the United States. I think if Americans truly understood that their names are not associated with this, it's not their personal phone records, it's business records, I think most Americans would say, yeah, that makes sense to me.
Let me ask you, I've got 30 seconds. Is the Intelligence Committee doing anything to interview the survivors of Benghazi, even the classified guys, the intel guys?
Yes, we have done that. We have, my committee has brought in the relevant CIA officers. We have another round of that to bring them in. And this is serious. 4 people died. I think there were political decisions involved in really bad security decisions. I think that's gross negligence at best. I think it's worse than that. We're going to continue to this investigation. The State Department portion of it has taken a little longer, and I think it's more difficult to get answers in the State Department Department side of it, but it's something that we need to do it.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time, and thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.